CyberHub bunker and studio. You're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Hey everyone, happy Tuesday, August 10th, 2021. Good morning, everyone, for tuning in. We're here for the Practitioner Brief. Thank you for tuning in this morning. I'm James Azar. I'm your host. I'm your CISO. For today's show, we'll be talking about the risk, impact, and mitigation of several stories, including another one that really got my juices amped up this morning a little bit because I had written something a little while ago on LinkedIn about a few weeks ago, and it's nonetheless, it's very, very interesting, and I can't wait to talk about it here later on in the show. So before we get started, though, good morning to the awesome James McQuiggan. Good morning to David. Good also morning to another David. Good morning to Anna Lynn and Harshel, and good morning to Joel from awesome North Carolina, wherever you're at. I hope today is an awesome day for all of you. Good morning to the awesome Heather. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We've got a lot to talk about today, but before we do that, let's first of all give a shout out to our sponsors. So without them, this show would not be possible. KnowBe4 and Ativo Networks. Go and check them out. You'll definitely see, some great products with those folks over there. So make sure to go check them out. Without further ado, my double espresso for coffee cup cheer times, folks. So whatever you're drinking this morning, make it yours. Enjoy it. Sip it wherever it is, morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're tuning in globally. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, and coffee cup cheers. Good morning to Matt. Coffee cup cheers, James. Thank you, buddy. All right, let's get right into what's going on. So here's the thing. Yesterday, a lot of stuff to talk about. Today, storyline kind of, almost overly quiet, but not really. There's a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes that needs to be paying attention to as practitioners. Let's start with this one. An actively exploited bug is bypassing authentication on millions of routers globally. The vulnerability is tracked as CVE 2021-20090, and it's a critical path traversal vulnerability rated 9.9 in 10 in the web interfaces of routers with Arcadian firmware that could allow unauthenticated remote attackers to bypass authentication. The ongoing attacks were discovered by Juniper Threat Lab researchers while monitoring the activity of a threat actor known for targeting network and IoT devices since February. The vulnerable devices include dozens of router models from multiple vendors and ISPs, including Asus, British Telecom, Deutsche Telekom, Orange, O2, Verizon, Vodafone, Telstra, and Telus. Based on the numbers of router models and the long list of vendors impacted by this bug, the total number of devices exposed to attacks likely reaches millions of routers. The security flaw was discovered by Tenable, which published a security advisor on April 26th and added a proof of concept code, exploit code, on Tuesday the 3rd. That was last week, folks. The vulnerability in the Arcadian firmware has existed for at least 10 years and has therefore found its way through the supply chain into at least 20 models across 17 different vendors. That is touched in the white paper by Tenable, and you can see the entire list of devices here, folks. So here's why this is important. We're all hybridly working. Different people have different devices. Our workforce is global. If one thing COVID has done is it's reduced the path, the traditional structure of a network. And now, folks, these are going to be specific targeted attacks targeting these devices at the root cause. So 2 days just after the POC exploit was released, there's already attacks and already threat actors searching for these vulnerabilities. The list is right here. Again, all the links to all the stories are in the show notes. You got to go and check this out. This is really, really significant. It doesn't seem like a lot of this could be US based, but then you never know. So go check this out. Make sure you get your either replace these routers or patch them. Either way, upgrade immediately. We'll move to another one where a critical random number generator flaw affects billions of IoT devices. Another critical vulnerability has been disclosed in hardware random number generators used in billions of IoT devices, whereby it fails to properly generate random numbers, thus undermining their security and putting them at risks of attack. We've talked about IoT devices over a period of time. It turns out that randomly chosen numbers aren't always as random as you'd like when it comes to IoT devices. Again, you can set up something and say it does X. Just because you do X doesn't mean that it does Y. Just because someone tells you something does X doesn't mean it does Y. How many of us have been convinced or told that, oh yeah, this randomly does numbers? Well, how does it work? And that's typically the question that we fail to ask after. How does it work? And right now, the random number generator is a crucial process that undergirds several cryptographic applications, including key generation, nuisance, and salting on traditional operating systems. It's derived from a cryptographically secure pseudo-random number generator that uses entropy obtained from a high-quality seed source. However, and I say this with the following, however, when it comes to IoT devices, this is supplied from a system on chip that houses a dedicated hardware RNG peripheral called a true random number generator that's used to capture randomness from physical processes or from the mnemonic. So you gotta, again, if you're using IoT devices, one, you've got to isolate them, but number two, you've really got to take care of this. Let's get to some of your comments because you guys are throwing some good stuff up here. Checking the box and task-based implementation versus results-based. Yes, Matt nailed it right there. Chris says, patch your stuff, folks. I think that's what he meant there. Bob, great to be here. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Again, these are all very, very important advice right here, but checking your IoT boxes, segmenting them on your network, as well as just seeing if you really need them. In some cases, we have a bunch of IoT devices we don't really need that are just sitting there and they're just an open threat vector. We'll move to my next story. This one, promise you one thing. Android's back in the news, right? So those who tune in regularly, once a month we talk about Pulse Secure. We did that yesterday. We'll leave those poor folks alone. But about every other week, we talk about Android. We can't leave them alone. They're the world's most popular OS system on smartphones. And so now a new Android Trojan has been identified, which in a report released on Monday explaining how the malware, which has been identified by cybersecurity firm Zimporium, has been able to hit more than 10,000 victims in 144 countries. It's called Flytrap. And it's been able to spread through social media, hijacking third-party app stores and side-loaded applications. The mobile threat research team that first identified the malware and figured out that it uses social engineering tricks to compromise Facebook accounts. The malware hijacks social media accounts by infecting Android devices, allowing attackers to collect information from victims like Facebook ID, location, email address, and IP address, as well as cookies and tokens tied to your Facebook account. These hijacked Facebook sessions can be used to spread the malware by abusing the victim's social credibility through personal messaging with links to the Trojans, as well as propagating propaganda or disinformation campaigns using the victim's geolocation details. These social engineering techniques are highly effective in the digitally connected world and are used often by cybercriminals to spread malware from one victim to another. The threat actors made use of several themes the users would find appealing, such as a free Netflix coupon code, Google AdWords coupon code, and voting for the best football team or player. Once the victims are convinced to download the app through deceptive designs, the app urges the users to engage and eventually asks people to enter their Facebook account information in order to vote on something or collect coupon code. Once they've got that information, well, they've taken over your Facebook account. So if Facebook is still your thing, by all means, it's very significant. So again, if you're using Android, keep an eye out for this stuff. Flytrap is just one example from this. They can move into your banking applications, enterprise tools, and a lot more. Again, if you have Android, my man, it's I don't know how you do it. All right, some comments. Asset management. How do we know which IoT devices are on your network? Are they supposed to be there? Can you segregate them out? One, yes, and yes. So how do you know which ones? Just scan your network. Open your router, whatever, see any devices that are connected on it. Most cable companies today, by the way, if you've just got I've got Xfinity. So whenever someone logs in through our guest network on my Xfinity router, I can see them on there, and then I can kick the device off later. And that's devices, that's IoT devices, that's anything. So go check that out. Every cable now gives you that access. One, make sure that if you don't recognize something, just check it before you delete it, because sometimes there are some devices that are connected to your networks, like printers or your your Echo or whatever, or your Apple Home. And then if you want to segregate them, create a separate network, disconnect them and connect them to the new network. Matt says about the last story, was that also from NSO Group? I'm not sure. Flytrap, Pegasus, and next month, Pegasus is a fun one indeed, which takes us to our final story today, folks. Chinese spies targeted Israel, posing as what? Iranian hackers. So a Chinese cyber espionage group has targeted Israeli organizations in a campaign that began in January of 2019, during which the group often used false flags and attempt to disguise as an Iranian threat actor. Detailed in a report today by Mandiant, the attacks targeted Israeli government institutions, IT companies, and telecom providers. The attackers, which Mandiant said it was tracking under the codename of UNC215, typically breached organizations by targeting Microsoft SharePoint servers that were unpatched for CVE 2019-0604 vulnerability. Once they gained access to one of these servers, they deployed the Wheat scan tool to scan the victim's internal network, then installed the Focus, I think that's the Focus FJORD web shell and the Hyperbro backdoor on key servers as a way to ensure persistence on the hacked organization's networks. Media said the group took great care and several steps to hide their intrusions, minimize forensic evidence on a victim's network, like removing malware artifacts once they were not needed, and using legitimate software to perform malicious operations. They also planted fake Iranian flags in the source code, often used file path mentioning Iran or error messages in Farsi. In addition, at least on 3 occasions, UNC215 also used an Iranian hacking tool that was leaked in Telegram in 2019. That's called the C-Sharpie web shell. However, Mandiant researchers said despite these indicators, the UNC group had been conducting cyber espionage operations of the interest to the Chinese state since at least 2014. And so China continues its malign activity. False flags are fun. Indeed, false flags are fun, especially. I wonder what would be Iran's retaliation to China. I don't know. I don't know that Iran would have anything here. No surprise with their art of war techniques. Yes, no surprise at all. Let them burn is that approach by the Chinese government. So that's it for our practitioner brief here today, folks. We'll be back again tomorrow. Tony Cole will be joining me right here at 9 a.m. We'll be talking all things security tomorrow, so you don't want to miss it with the awesome, magnificent, and great Tony Cole. Until then, folks, thanks so much for tuning in this morning. Thank you for being with us. See you tomorrow, and until then, stay cyber safe. Cheers.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.